We were driving home late one night from the gay bar. It's amazing that none of us got seriously hurt or died.
We thought that we'd talk about you today.
Yes.
And where did this come from?
We were at Massimo Con. This guy specifically, Tim, was like, hey, I think it'd be really awesome if we got to learn about you a little bit. I almost always have a question myself whenever somebody says they're an actor comedian. You know, immediately go, oh, and at what capacity? At what stage? Have they been in something I've seen? Have they been in movies? What do they mean when they say comedy? Are they a stand-up comedian? Yeah, really introduce myself to the listeners. Everything from how do I make money to do I produce or coach. I got some crazy stories. We don't have to go into all of them. I ended up going to the wrong conference. It was just chains and leather, and I was like, this is not right. It was nuts. These drunk white people wanted to get the top of the line, but I would walk away with way more money in cash than I've ever made.
And there's my little brother Timmy in the back. He's like,
yeah, come on. You know, it was so goofy and stuff. I had no idea, I said, that I have any kind of discipline. Somebody that I knew ended up seeing that show, wanted to film a pilot, and it almost got picked up by Playboy. There's a goat on your back and you're doing yoga. What am I doing? This is one of the weirdest auditions I ever did.
Like, you'd check your email and you would see, I just got paid 3 times.
You know, I was making $1,000 to $1,500 a weekend in cash on that job. Whew. An episode where I got to talk all about myself. Awesome.
This episode is sponsored in part by the Massimo Group. Are you a commercial real estate broker looking to boost your business? The Massimo Group is the world's premier coaching organization, transforming the careers of brokers just like you, just like it did for me. Visit www.massimo-group.com today to get started and take your career to the next level. This episode is also brought to you by Site to Do Business, commercial real estate's most advanced toolkit, providing commercial real estate professionals like me with premier data, mapping, and marketing tools to win business and revolutionize decision-making. Visit stdb.com to learn more.
I'm in the doghouse, I think, mostly due to lack of communication. I forget to tell her certain things or times that I have something. And then,
you know. Almost like you need an EA.
Yeah. Oh, we talk about it a lot. It'd be very, very helpful. You know, we talked to the SUPERPOWERS guys, which was another fantastic episode all about getting a EA. For those of you all that are like, what are you talking about? SuperPowers.com, superpowershq.com/commercially speaking. You can go see
and if you wanted to watch that episode, you could watch that where?
Right there.
Life-changing.
Life-changing. But they said, you know, you got to probably around where you're making $1 million, it'd be a good time to get, you know, the top tier EA.
Well, or your company's generating $1 million worth of revenue.
Oh, $1 million worth of revenue. Gotcha.
That's different than making $1 million.
Oh, wow. I'm closer than I thought.
You are.
Closer than I thought. But, still, that gap is huge. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
we thought that we'd talk about you today.
Yes. Yeah.
And where did this come from?
Well, welcome to Commercially Speaking. I'm Timmy Barron, ADHD.
And I'm Bo Barron, CCIM.
And this is the podcast where Bo teaches me everything about commercial real estate investing. We're both, this is Black Friday when we're recording this. So
it is,
yeah,
yes.
We had lots of turkey yesterday. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Tryptophan and family.
That's right. But we were at Massimo Con.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic event. If Rod ever does it again, this is the last one, but if he ever does it again, hop on it.
It is the last one.
Yeah.
Until the next one.
Until the next one. And I met a guy there, so shout out to Tim Goslin.
Okay.
Tim.
What up, Tim?
Shout out. And one of the things that I thought was really awesome about being there was being able to talk to, you know, people who really love the podcast face to face, and not just, you know, put a face to the name and hear from people. And I was getting asked about myself and what I do, and had a lot of people ask me about if I could help them to create content or do things. But, you know, in that moment, I realized that a lot of people had a lot of questions about me that we haven't gone in depth or covered on this podcast at all, other than I'm your brother, I'm an actor comedian, and then bits and pieces here and there.
Sure.
And I was like, I almost always have a question myself whenever somebody says they're an actor comedian. Immediately go, oh, and at what capacity? At what stage? Have they been in something I've seen? Have they been in movies? What do they mean when they say comedy? Are they a stand-up comedian? Or are they going out all the time? Bye-bye, GoPro. Are they going out, to stages all the time? It's just all these questions because actor, comedian, or whatever is just pretty vague. And this guy specifically, Tim, was like, hey, I think it'd be really awesome if you did an episode or we got to learn about you a little bit.
Yeah.
And ask some specific questions about that. And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, really, really introduce myself to the listeners. Everything from how do I make money, which is always my question too. A lot of people in the arts, if you see somebody
people
that's
have asked
doing
me
well,
that, like, does Timmy work for you? It's like, no, not really.
Yeah, independent contractor.
Yeah,
for now, got some deals worked out. All the way from that to do I produce or coach other people in this field to help them do things like that. So yeah, Tim, thanks for asking that question. I think this is, it's like, an episode where I got to talk all about myself. Awesome.
Well, if you think about our show here, you're the surrogate, like you're the sit-in for the listener.
Right.
And so, as I teach you these commercial real estate concepts and stuff like that, like you really are sitting in for the listener. And
That's
so
right.
Because of that, we haven't talked as much about you.
No, I'm playing the role of the the idiot, commercially speaking. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about you, which is a funny thing to ask my younger brother, but
I'm sure there's a lot of questions you have as well that.
Well, I do, because here's kind of what I remember. And we've talked about some of these things in previous episodes, but we've talked about you being homesick from school and me letting you, or putting on Happy Madison, I think.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Yeah, Happy Madison is the production company, right?
Yeah. You let me watch Happy Gilmore and then Much Ado About Nothing, which I was like, this is not as funny.
But it was Shakespeare
and
Keanu Reeves and Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson and
Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah, he was in that too.
Yeah, he was. No, he's a great Shakespearean actor, actually.
And I remember listening to you talk about how that kind of revved your engines. Like, I could see myself doing this. I would love to do this kind of thing. I remember when you went to college at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, then you ended up at Memphis. Then you came home, you were in the band. I remember going and seeing you in the band. I remember when you started talking about Second City and how that's kind of an entree into Saturday Night Live, and you know, you wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. And then you've talked a little bit about how you went to Chicago with me. I had some work up there, and you were trying to get in Second City, and there's that really cool story. Well, why don't you just start there? Like, when we made that road trip up to Chicago, you were just sort of along for the ride, but you'd applied, you were trying to get into Second City. But what happened while we were there?
I love this story too, but I always wanted to go to Chicago. I always wanted to be in Chicago. And my whole trajectory was like, I'm going to go to college, thinking that was the only option, really. Go to college, get my degree in theater, and then move to Chicago and do Second City. And there's a couple curves in the road. Because I lost my scholarship at one, then went to University of Memphis, got a scholarship there, then lost my scholarship there, then had my advisor say, well, you don't have to go into debt to continue to go to college to do what you do. You can do this without going into debt. And so I started doing theater and working at Domino's, but not making much money because you don't make much money as an actor at all until you hit a certain level or certain milestones.
We're at Domino's.
Domino's, the same thing.
I was also a professional driver for Domino's.
That's right. Yeah, professional driver. Yeah, not delivery. Yeah. So around that time, it was just like I had hit my 4 years. I had planned to go to college and then go to Second City. So things just kind of changed. And then I got a call from my best friend. It's like, hey, come be in a band. Because I did music all throughout high school and I was in bands there. And then went to Nashville for a couple of years playing in this band. But from the very beginning, I was like, I'm going to Chicago. I'll be here until you find another bass player, blah, blah, blah. And so I stayed with them way longer than I thought, and it was probably the best thing to happen for me. I think when we talked about your boot camp, this was like my boot camp when it came to the arts and things. We really were thrown into the real world as artists that had to build a fan base, a following, and understand the business of of all this. After that fell through, after a very, very awful car accident in our little 15-passenger van that we lugged all of our stuff in. Do you remember this?
No.
Yeah, we got in a really bad car accident and totaled this car. Yeah, it's amazing that none of us got seriously hurt or died. We were driving home late one night from Partners, which is a bar in Huntsville, Alabama. It was a gay bar, which we didn't know the first time we went. We just, were booking every place that could get us. We made more money there than we've ever made anywhere else, auctioning off our shirts and pants while we're playing. And
is that a joke or is that real?
No, this is real. This is 100% real. So we went back there at least 3 times, But yeah, it was just so funny to show up and not expect what we were going into. But of course, it's called Partners, but it could be a cowboy bar. What's up, partner? Anyway, but one night driving to Memphis from Alabama late at night, the one driving fell asleep at the wheel. So we went off, and I'm in the front seat playing a game. I was like, oh, he woke up, and because it was raining, we slid across the grass. We probably should have flipped, but it was wet, so we slid across, and they hit a tree. And about maybe 50 yards ahead of us was a bridge embankment and a little river. Yeah, it was nuts. And so that made us all move back home to get this thing fixed, or pay off the car. And then from there, that's when I was like, okay, this is the time to start planning and go back to Chicago.
I didn't realize that.
I got some crazy stories. We don't have to go into all of them, but that was a crazy one.
Huh.
But that's what got me back. That's what got us back home. It got me back home in Owensboro and to really plan to go to Chicago. So I'm there. We go to Chicago. You take me there. Mm-hmm. So back to where you were like, let's jump off of here. I had applied for the Second City Training Center Improv for Actors program because you had to take that before you went into their conservatory, which was my plan. And you needed a bachelor's in order to get into this. And I wrote them up. It's like, hey, I don't have a bachelor's, but here's all these videos I've made. Here's the experience I've had. I've been doing theater, blah, blah, blah. I had not heard back from whether I was getting in or not. So there's a Second City in Piper's Alley, which is where Second City is located. Mm-hmm. There's a Starbucks down there. And I go into there wanting to go into Second City for the first time and seeing it, but I could not bring myself to go in there because I just did not feel confident. So I'm sitting there, and while I'm there at Starbucks, I get the email saying, hey, you got accepted. You're going into the program. And I was like, I'm going in. I'm going in. And I found a mutual friend of a friend who was working there at the time. She gave me a whole tour of everything. Super nice. Betsy Stone. Shout out to Betsy. She will never hear this, but the rest is history. I had a really close friend that was up there, and so I moved up there, I think, a month or two later, 3 weeks before the class started.
So here's a question I have. I've always kind of wondered this, and just one of those questions I don't ask because you assume or context gives you enough information or whatever, but what on earth is a conservatory anyway? Oh,
yeah, sure. It's kind of like schooling that's very hyper focused on a certain discipline, right? So in this case, it's improv. It's called the Improv Conservatory. So what they are essentially teaching us over the length of a year or two, I think the program was a full year, 5 different levels. You had to audition to get in, then you had to re-audition on the 3rd level to complete the course. And you're basically learning Second City's formula for creating a sketch comedy show that you would go see on the main stage there, through improvising in front of an audience and letting them tell you what's funny and not, and really kind of confirming what you thought was funny or wrote, and then it falls flat and say, okay, we'll scrap this or work something else out until you've got a full length show. So that is actually a good question. That's always been my understanding. Conservatory is just a hyper-focused program where you're not a college for the study of classical music or other arts. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did both Improv Conservatory and the Musical Improv Conservatory, which was a new program at the time. And I got into both and kind of took them alongside each other.
Okay. So that was my next question. You took them in parallel. Mm-hmm. So you just have classes all day? Like you were in college?
Yes. Taking classes Monday through Friday. And they're at least 2 to 4 hours a day.
Okay.
And I was working there at the time on the night staff too. So that helped me pay for classes. And then, so I was there virtually like 12 hours a day.
So you complete the conservatories. Is there a graduation? Like Will's about to have his graduation from college.
You have a graduation.
Stage kind of thing. And then.
So by the end of the program, we have put together a sketch comedy show.
Okay.
Right. So we have our very own Second City style show that the graduates put on. And so people could come for, I think it was like, they ran for 2 weeks. But we had the show, so this was my opportunity. And a lot of the producers and the big people higher up at Second City go to these shows to see who they could pick out and want to hire to be, actors and comedians on their stages. They got touring companies, and at the time they were on Norwegian Cruise Lines. So a cast of 5 members and a musical director would go and perform like best of Second City sketches. And they put together their own show based off of already proven great sketches from Steve Carell or Stephen Colbert, like all these big names, So the graduation was a few shows that we did, which I got the recording of our show, which is pretty good. But I had Burgess Griffer. That's where he really came out, and like the one I wrote just crushed. And it was him doing a bunch of impressions like he was auditioning.
I can do Forrest Whitaker. I can do that little black kid from Hook. Do you remember your mother?
And then he ended doing a monologue from Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. I love thee not, therefore pursue me not. Where's Lysander and fair Hermia? The one I slay, the other slay me. And leave thee to the mercy of wild beasts.
One of my favorite things to do is surprise people. I was Anthony, our sister's husband, last night. He was like, "You play piano?" I was like, "Yeah, I do," because it was there playing. And then I sat down and played. He goes, "Man, you're always so goofy and stuff. I had no idea." And I said that I'd have any kind of discipline to learn how to play piano. He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite things when I surprise people with what I'm able to do, because I do come off as very goofy and whatever comes with that.
What surprised me yesterday? Of course, we mentioned today's Black Friday. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. So yesterday, our dad wanted to try to create a new Thanksgiving tradition. And so he bought flags, like flag football flags, and had the yard mowed in a specific way, and put out 10-yard markers and a shortened field, and we played flag football.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. But like, man, you're fast. You're annoyingly fast.
That's Tizbee.
I mean, Tizbee could be why you're in some kind of shape. But
sure. Yeah.
Like, you've got speed that I don't know that I ever saw before.
Yeah.
Of course, I was enough older than you that we didn't really play basketball in the driveway or anything. But man, trying to cover you or account for you on defense or whatever.
Yeah.
Annoyingly fast. Surprisingly. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool, because I never thought of myself as fast.
Well,
but it's funny you bring this up, because like last week I raced Leland, because Leland was like, I surprised myself the other day. I'm a lot faster than I thought. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, let's race real quick. And he didn't beat me by much. Yeah. Super tall, super fast, in shape.
Gazelle strides.
But I think it was just last week where I was like, oh, wow, I'm way faster than I thought, because I was so close. I thought he was going to smoke me, but he didn't. Anyway, so that's kind of, I really like this. Got some speed.
Yeah. Yes. Man of many surprises and talents.
So anyway, we had our show, and then auditions to be on one of the cruise ship casts came up, and those are invite only, and I was invited to go. And so I went in. I remember going in and
you think Burgess got you the invite? That
Burgess
character
was a big part. Yeah. And then like I had other sketches in there that I think were really good and really funny, and I think that really showcased my talent, but not really showcased me as a team player in a cast, which is very, very important. Especially when you're doing improv. You don't want to, you want to make your scene partner look the best that they can, and that makes a good partner.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it definitely had an impact on it. So I was invited to do this, and I walk in, I remember, and I got this a lot at that time, was like, who are you? Where did you come from? Because a lot of people had been in Chicago or have gone through the program, had been performing on stages all around the city for at least 5 or 6 years. So I remember thinking for a while, like, oh, wow, my trajectory is kind of happening really quickly. So anyway, long story short, I auditioned for this. It was a pretty long process. And then I ended up getting cast, and I was 4 months on a cruise ship. And then they offered me another contract for another 4 months. And on that one, that's where I met Tara.
Your wife. If this is
wife.
your first episode,
yes.
Tara is his wife.
Yep. She's from Ireland, and she was working on a ship, on the ship as well, selling diamonds. She was called the port shopping consultant. And so we met on that ship, fell in love, and then she came back to Chicago with me. And then when I got back to Chicago, there was another theater called Public House Theater that had like the longest running and best or top show in Chicago, live show in Chicago, which is called Bye Bye Liver, which right there. Bye Bye Liver. Bye Bye
And I went and saw that show.
Oh, that's right. You saw it. And it was an interactive drinking show. So we had sketch comedy that was poking fun at characters that you would see in the drinking culture in Chicago, very Chicago. And then between, you played drinking games with the audience, like Guess That Tune, which we play sometimes, and a few other games. And my role of it was I led everybody. I was the bartender, because it all takes place in a bar, or the setting on stage was a bar. Anyway, and so I did that for a year, and that really, really helped up my. It was kind of in parallel to, if I wasn't on a main stage at Second City, I was doing the same thing on this stage, which was writing new material, putting it up in an audience, and having a constant, consistent, for a whole year, doing 5 shows a week. One of the other cast members was Heidi. So we did Timmy Heidi Picture Show. So we put up our own show, and Chicago Tribune came to that, wrote a great review of that. And around the same time is when I got my first agent.
Well, that was a question I had. Like, you're doing this, you get some work through Second City on the cruise ships, get those 2 contracts. Anything else ever happen with Second City from there?
I taught at Second City, and then I wrote a new program for them about producing your own show, or producing your one-person show, because I had done that. So I wrote that, and that was for the online training program. Okay. So I ended up teaching acting.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, ended up teaching acting and stand-up, which is funny. I produced, you went to Bar Below.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a weekly show. Before any of that, I had a weekly show downtown Chicago where I would book stand-up comedians and kind of a variety of comedians. But that was another opportunity where every week I had to write something new or try something out.
And that's the place where Dad actually did his. Tell me about how that.
Yeah. So this was at the Public House Theater. This is where we did Bye Bye Liver, not at the Bar Below.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was but it was in a different theater space in that building. So I would produce a lot of different shows, whether it was one I was doing or a variety show where you book other comedians and get it in. It was like, it's funny because I joke with Tara a lot that I never had a Friday or Saturday for about 3 years because I was always working or producing something or doing something. It was just never had a weekend. Mondays and Tuesdays were always my weekends. Anyway, part of when we were at the Public House Theater doing Bye Bye Liver is we would come in and as writers and ensemble members of this theater come up with ideas of like one-off shows or shows to put together to bring more people there, blah, blah, blah. And so Father's Day was coming up. And I was like, let's do a Father's Day show. So I called Dad up. I was like, hey, Dad, we're doing this thing. Will you Skype in? Can we all want to Skype in our dads or fathers? He was like, well, I'll just come on up. I was like, come on up. And so Mom came up here. And I was like, Dad, it'd really be cool. Because when we were kids, were you there when he impersonated Mike Templeton?
I was not at that.
Yeah.
I heard about it.
Yeah. I think it was at the Sports Center.
It was.
That happened, yeah. Our dad had somebody help him write a bunch of jokes. And he went up on stage and impersonated our pastor, the head pastor at the time.
Yeah.
And it killed. Like, I remember I was just blown away, and I was like so proud of my dad. And it was written specifically for that audience, and that taught me a lot. Like, when I came to Massimo, when you hired us to do stuff there, it's like my whole opening and things. Like, I mimicked Rod Santa Massimo and wrote a lot of jokes
Well, I
specific
remember
to that
sending
audience.
you all the videos that I had of Rod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny, like dominating.
Sorry, Rod.
Domination. It was just such a huge word at the time. So that was so fun to make jokes about that. Like, or no, I ended up going to the wrong conference. So across the street, they also got a dominating event, but it was just chains and leather, and I was like, this is not right. But like writing jokes specifically for an audience, that seed was planted watching Dad do that. So anyway, I knew Dad was capable of doing that, and I was like, that'd be hilarious if you came up on stage and did your own stand-up set, which is out there online. Anybody can watch that.
You could probably even link it right there. Because I remember watching the video. I remember when Dad was preparing for it. I remember that it was going to happen. I wasn't able to be there to watch it. But didn't he wear like a mullet wig and really, really hammed up the rednecking of Kentucky? And
he did. Yeah, he did. And he was supposed to like interrupt me as I was talking and then come up on stage and take over, which he did.
If you gonna talk about me, how about me? Come on up here, buddy.
You think it's easy?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, I'm scared to death.
Ladies and gentlemen, my dad, Bill Barron.
And so that was an incredible thing to share with Dad. Share the stage on this little show that I was producing or whatever, and for him to do it, be willing to do it, and it was just a really cool thing to share with him.
Hello, everybody. My name is William G. Barron.
I've got some arts questions that I've always kind of wondered.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me the difference between a producer, a director, and an executive producer.
Sure.
It's like anytime I watch a movie or I see a play, you'll see the credits roll. Like I'm looking at Limerence right here, and we can see.
I guess you don't see executive producer on this one.
But like, what's the difference between those roles? Like, what are they and how are they different?
They vary a little bit from stage to on camera. Almost always, when you see executive producer, it's somebody who has put up a lot of money to help fund the thing.
Okay.
So it's a great way to raise money for your project. It's like, hey, raise money. And what you get is you get your name as an executive producer, right? And then sometimes you'll see executive producer Brad Pitt. It's like, that either means he put up the money or he really likes this project enough to put his name on it. You see?
Gotcha.
They're giving some kind of value that is not involved with the actual production of it for the most part. But a producer is the one that's kind of making sure everything is running good and well. So they'll be from the process at the very beginning to the very end. They are there. A lot of times when it's like network TV shows and things like that, the producers are the one making sure that the director doesn't step too far or do too much to protect the brand of the network, brand of the show. Producers are almost always called the shots when it like to
so
the
would they
ultimately at the
be
end.
like the GM of a football team?
Yeah. Let's do baseball. I'm more familiar with that structure, I think.
Okay, so the GM of a baseball team would represent the owners. They're the ones that are out there actually hiring the players, negotiating the contracts. They're the ones that put the team on the field. And then in baseball, the manager is the one directing the game.
Yes.
He's deciding who's going to play, who's going to pitch that day, when to pull the pitcher for a relief pitcher. The manager is doing that. The GM doesn't have day-to-day responsibilities in the game.
Right. He's making sure everything.
He's running the business.
Yeah.
He's responsible for who's available, who's on the team.
Yeah. So that's general manager, and that's who you're talking about.
That's the producer.
Yeah. That would be the producer.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the manager of the team, right? Which I always thought was the coach.
In baseball, It's the manager.
The manager.
Yep.
So if we're talking in those terms, that would be the director.
Okay.
Right? So when production happens, the director is the one that makes the final call. Right? It's their artistic vision that's telling the story, that's running through. And so if a producer ever steps in, it's because because the money is saying, hey, we can't go this far, we can't do this, we can't go there. But almost always you know, when you put a group together, the director is the one that makes the final call when it comes to anything artistic during production, post-production, even from the very beginning as well. They're the ones that are the final straw. They call everything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's helpful.
Like Troy, Troy, who's married to our cousin. He's very much producer. Like if I was going to do, like we're thinking about doing a Tizbee movie at some point, he'd come in as the producer and he would help us to budget. He'd help us, you know, kind of just lay out the whole structure of moving forward and doing that. So if we're going to take a step back to Chicago real quick, because I hit the point where I got an agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is I got a talent agent. I always thought an agent would see me, right, and be like, hey, I want to represent you. I always thought that's how it would work. So I just needed to be on stage as much as possible. And then I was there for, 2 or 3 years, and that hadn't happened yet. And this is around the time where I really began to take control of like, okay, let me educate myself of all the agents that exist in Chicago. And let me see if I know anybody. Because at the time, you could go to their website and see all the other actors and actresses that they represented. I was like,
Now, you said at the time. Is that not the case anymore?
not all agencies do that, especially if you're in LA. If you look at the agencies, they're not going to have a roster of everybody that they list publicly on that website.
Okay.
In Chicago at the time, and I haven't looked in several years.
Okay.
I saw many different people that I knew. This is probably about 4 or 5 years into Chicago. Many people that I booked on shows that I did. Many other people that I taught. Many other people that I helped get a job.
So these are people that you had relational capital with.
Yeah.
Like you had provided value to them in the past.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of them, or worked with them on a project. So they know me on a level of, work ethic and talent and things of that nature. So I just reached out to every single one. I made my list of who I'd want to go with. And then I reached out to every single person that I knew and basically was like, hey, I'm looking for representation. I saw you're with them. Do you mind putting in a word for me if you're comfortable? If not, no worries. And everybody but one said yes. I think I've told you this before.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that. And the one was
the other,
not really a no, right? It was
like his agent asked
him not to do
their
that.
clients not to, don't recommend anybody. And I just got new headshots, probably my first professional headshots where I spent, saved and spent a good amount of money rather than, hey, we got a photographer here at Second City that for $100 will do a shoot for you.
So
and then I documented all of this as well. So I started making content that was more focused on not just doing silly things I thought was funny, but it was more focused on if you wanted to get into this, how do you do it? So I documented my journey of my research and doing that. It's kind of vlog style of I'm on a quest to get an agent. Let's see how long this happens. Or we do it. Now, just checking off the boxes and, okay, need a headshot. This is what I need. This is what people say I need. I'm doing this, reaching out. And from the moment I started submitting, it took 9 days before I had an agent.
Really?
Yeah. I had 3 meetings set up. One of them was a meeting that was going to happen right away. And I ended up going with that one, which was NV Talent, Naked Voices. And they were known as a voiceover agency. But they had a agent from LA come to Chicago, I think a year or 2 years prior, and opened up on-camera representation. So I got there at a nice, sweet spot. I had my reels. So, if you've done enough video work, you cut together a, 3 to 5 minute reel of some of the best work that you've done. And with Timmy Heidi Picture Show, I invited somebody that I knew that ended up seeing that show and wanted to make a pilot out of it. And it almost got picked up by Playboy, who was rebranding at the moment to not just do, the magazine and all that, but they were wanting to do more content, video content, and kind of moving. I just remember that because I was like, what, really? And so that was really fun. We shot that pilot and got shopped around. Anyway, what was I saying?
Well, it was
Oh,
90
so I had all
days.
this video. Yeah, I had all this video for reels. And I think that happened too. So it was 9 days I got an agent.
My guess is if somebody just shows up to Chicago or somewhere else and says, all right, I need to, get headshots, check this box. 9 days is probably not normal.
No.
So here's what I'm wondering. Was it the years of helping others that came back to you in that spot? So you had warm introductions to representation or to an agent.
Yep.
So that had to help. You had all this, all these recordings of your talent that you had to pull on. That was at the ready. You had new headshots.
My resume looked really good. I had Second City on it and
Yeah.
all these other things as well. Yeah. So I think a big part of why it happened so fast was my years of experience of honing my craft, number one. So I wasn't new to what I was doing. And then, of course, all this body of work I could show. I was really surprised at how many people set up a meeting, with 3 agencies really quickly. I was like, oh, I should have done this a while ago.
So what were those conversations like? You go in there and you meet with these agencies.
Yeah, well, I ended up not meeting with 2 of them because one was going to be in a couple months. The other one was going to be around that same time. But the one that I ended up going with kind of happened right away. And I knew I was pretty good friends with a couple of the people that he represented. And it was a lot of them that were in my group, not just actors or theater actors, but sketch comedy, improv, that kind of group. And so I felt really like this was the avenue I want to go. It was a little bit more boutique, so it wasn't as many people. So I would get, the people he had, send them out and put them out there. And
So tell me more about what does an agent actually do?
so an agent they negotiate contracts for you. So they will try to get the most amount of money, and they've got relationships with casting directors. So they will also pitch you to the casting directors. Casting directors are the people that are who have their finger on the pulse of the talent that's around them. They've got headshots of certain people that stand out to them up on their office wall. So when a project comes and, it's for a commercial looking for people with improv background, they have at the ready, top of mind, a few people that they want to bring in to see. And then you've got this initial audition process where they bring in a handful of actors, and then they choose who they want to show. At a callback, they will show the producer and the director, the writers, who, all of them or any combination of them to come, and they, ultimately pick. But the casting directors can kind of fight for you and be like, hey, I've seen him audition here several times. I think he's great for this. Even though it didn't seem like he gave so much right now, I think, they kind of fight for you. Like, we've seen him so much. This would be a great role for him and that. So the agents have relationships with those people that select and bring in new talent. So they're fighting to get you in that room at first so that you can build relationships and meet these casting directors and they can get to know you. So that when a project comes along, you're top of mind, and they call the agent and bring you in. So it's almost like the gatekeeper between casting, from the casting director to the talent. You've got this person who can be the relationship builder between the two and also the bad guy. So if there's any issues or problems I had, I go to my agent and be like, hey, this came up, can we fix this or whatever, which didn't happen often. But so you got agents and you also have managers. And the big difference between these two is a manager cannot negotiate for you. And managers are there to help you sharpen yourself as an actor and as a product, really. Where an agent, they'll take you on because you're already something they can sell. Well, managers see something in you and really want to help you to grow that thing.
So did you ever have a manager?
Never had a manager. No.
Why can't managers negotiate?
It's
Is it like an industry norm? Is it a licensing issue?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, like
So
agents
have a license to do what they do? Okay.
Yes. So yeah, that's the big, and there's nuance between all this, but that's always a question I got all the time.
So it sounds like you did a lot of theater, a lot of producing shows.
All in the realm of improv, comedy, and variety.
And then you get an agent. Is that where you started to have some on-screen jobs?
Yeah. So as soon as I got an agent, I started getting called in. The first commercial I read for was Weather Tech, or the ones that make mats for your car.
Yeah, WeatherTech.
Is that Weather Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got brought in as like a Paul Blart type character. So they were looking for somebody who could ride a Segway. And I had, my mustache was even bigger than this at the time. So they're looking for somebody with a mustache. And
Was that when you sort of had the little...
came out a little bit, yeah.
And you were a Segway tour guide.
And I was a Segway tour guide at the time. And so that kind of happened right away. And I thought it was a shoe-in for it, yeah. And I got a call back right away. There's a lot of times where you won't end up getting the job, but you got a call back, which means they want to see you again and give you, see if you can try some things. So yeah, that's another thing I've always told actors too. And it's so easy. If you're not booking jobs, but you're getting callback after callback after callback, that means that the casting directors really, really like you. This is a great sign. It's only a matter of time. So yeah, so that I started going in for reading. So I've read from everything from a lot of commercials, and I booked a lot of commercials. The first one I got was Best Western.
I remember that one.
Best Western.
You're out of breath.
Yes,
trying to
get my points.
Trying to spend your points before they expire.
Yeah. I could play some of these in the thing.
Can't expire.
I'm sorry?
My last day was 364 days, 23 hours, and 46 seconds ago, so you can't take my points.
That's true.
Yes!
But that's also...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
I can play some of these as I talk about them. Because there's one that was my favorite. But I was reading for everything from, I read for Fargo, season 2, Chris Rock. Really awesome part for that. Of course, all the Chicago shows, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, read for those multiple times.
Well, let's come back
for
to, because I want to talk about how auditioning has changed over the years. But like you actually were on an episode of Chicago Fire.
Yeah, so I got Chicago Fire.
Mikey! Give me your hand! Oh, Mikey, come on!
Yeah. So I went into that casting office, and that actually came after I took a workshop with this certain casting director, right? So it's another thing you can do. And I had my finger on the pulse of like, which one of these casting directors are doing workshops where you can kind of get, they can see you and work with you, give you notes and all this. And so shortly after that, she called me in for Chicago Fire. And I read for that and got a call back, went back into the office, read for it with the director there, and then I ended up getting that role. And that was super fun that day because I had a stunt double because the boat had to crash into the dock. Just to see kind of the magic of what happens on a set like that.
Now, if our listeners wanted to go watch that episode, do you remember what season and episode it was?
Yeah, season 8, episode 2. It's called A Shot in the Arm.
A Shot in the Arm.
A Shot in the Arm. And my agent, when he told me about it, when I got it, he was like, this is a good co-star. So here's another thing, a little bit of education. If you're in a movie and you're a co-star, you're like one of the leads, right? You're co-starring in a movie. If you're in a TV show and you're a co-star, that means you've got a scene. And you've got, I think, three to 5 lines or more. Other than that, you're just like a featured extra, if it's any less than that.
Okay. Or
you're an extra. I think most people know what extra is. Featured extra, you get paid just a little bit more, and you might have a line in there. This one is actually something is happening. Oftentimes, you're dealing with one of the leads of the show.
But you're likely not in more than one episode if you're a co-star?
Co-star, yeah. No,
just one episode?
Yeah, and one episode, oftentimes, is like a scene that propels the story forward. And my scene, it was big accident that got them stop talking about their love life and do something, get to work, save some lives.
And I've told you how. Oh, I know I have.
What? Yeah, what?
Like Maddie.
Oh yeah.
Maddie really, really likes the star of the show that was in that scene with you,
right?
And Severide. Kelly. He's got a girl's first name.
Yeah.
Is it Kelly Severide?
Right. I forget his name.
Anyway, that's the name of the the actor,
Yeah.
or not the actor, but the character in the
he was,
show. And so she was.
He was with Lady Gaga for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they ever got married, but the weirdest. Did you have a question I was answering or no? Oh, no. What I was saying was co-star, and then a guest star is where you have several scenes.
Okay.
Right. So if you think about any of these procedural shows like NCIS, anything Dick Wolf, you've got your main characters that are in every episode, but are all at House. You know, these are procedural shows. You've got new characters that are throughout that whole episode.
Sure.
And sometimes they'll become recurring, which would go multiple episodes. But these ones that, you know, it's like, this is the person who's having an issue throughout the whole show. They have a full arc, you know, the wife of whoever's in a coma now, and those are called guest stars. And that's, Tara's reading a lot of guest stars for Chicago Med, like a lot of, which is a good sign, and getting a lot of callbacks and reads. So that's when you know that casting director really likes you, and they're trying to get you in there.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before it syncs up and it's right. Because a lot of times as actors too, when you don't get it, you think, oh man, I suck. Almost always it's not because you sucked. You're getting called in because you're good and they like you. It just isn't right for the role.
Not the right fit.
Yeah, it's not the right fit.
Yeah.
I got to tell this story because this is one of the weirdest auditions I ever did. And it was for Illinois Lottery.
Well, I was going to ask you because I remember you were in the...
Don't give it away just yet. Because I go in there and the script is like, you know, there's a goat on your back and you're doing yoga. The only line I had in that actual script was like to look back at the goat and say namaste. And then they wanted to see me juggle. So I fake juggled, got on my hands and knees with a goat on my back. And
in the audition, they put an actual goat on your back?
No, there's no goat.
Okay.
Like, there's no goat. There's nothing to actually juggle with. They just want to see me do these things. Pantomime. And I was like, this is just so ridiculous. There's some you walk in there and you're like, what am I doing? Right? It's part of paying your dues, but it's like, this ended up being one of my favorite projects I did. And the one where I got the most texts, people coming up to me at Costco being like, hey, you're that guy, yeah. You know, whatever. Especially in Illinois, because it wasn't national, but it was, you know, all of Illinois, and it played the biggest football games. It played during SNL on Saturday nights. Like, it was so cool.
Larry's New Year's resolution was to embrace new things. He tried the newest yoga trend,
Namaste. Hey, Daryl.
the newest fashion trend, even a new hobby. Now Larry is trying a new taxes.
But I go in, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I walk out when it's over, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Then I get a call back for it. I'm like, oh, great. So I call back, I go into the room. The room is full now.
So you go to the initial audition.
Yes.
You walk out, you're thinking, what am I doing with my life? You get a call back. How much time elapsed between the initial audition and the callback?
A day, maybe.
Okay. So the next day you go back and the room is full.
So the next day I hear about the callback, and I think the day after that I go in.
Okay.
There's a couple days between that and the callback, mostly, but it could be. There's been times I went in and then found out I got a callback or got the role like 3 weeks later, you know. But yeah, so there's been a couple days since the thing. So I go back to the casting office and go into a room, and the room is full. There's probably about 15, 20 people. And then the person who I assume is the director, this tall, bearded guy who's giving me direction, wanting to see me do a few other things. And I don't remember specifically, but I remember this is a nice guy. It's so weird. I got to get on my hands and knees in front of all these people. I got to act like I'm juggling. And a couple other things I don't quite remember now. But so I leave, and then I think I got a call, a few hours later or the next day from my agent saying, hey, you got this gig. I was like, awesome. And so the next thing I got to do is go to fitting. I got to go get fit I think I had like 4 or 5 different costume changes in this. And so, and this is all a part of the process too. Anything you do this, one of the first things you do is you go to fitting. And so you're meeting the makeup artist, you're meeting the director, you're meeting, pretty much everybody you're going to work with, the wardrobe, and sure enough, there's the big, tall, bearded guy again. And it's just he and I talking a lot. And he's the director. I know it.
At this point, did you know his name even?
I mean, his name would have been on the call sheet, I knew it was Jared, but the name didn't ring a bell. You know,
Okay.
I've worked with a lot of different directors that have been really great. And I just thought it was just another director. And so the day of the shoot comes, and it's I think it ended up being like a 16-hour shoot. Like I got there at 5 a.m, and then we ended up wrapping at 8 or something like that. It was an all-day shoot. They brought in a goat. It wasn't on my back. They superimposed it later. That's a story for another time. But we're there all day, and I'm vibing with the director a lot. Like all these things we're doing, he's looking back and he's laughing. Like when they start to work with you and want to see different things out of you, that's always a good sign. And so he'd be like, "Oh, that was really great. Can we do it where you like, try this?" I go, "You got it, Jared." Just kind of like this camaraderie. We're having fun. This is good. Having serious. And so there's a couple hours left of the shoot. They're setting up one of the last shots. And he just came over. He's like, "So, yeah, how long have you been in Chicago?" Just chatting while they're setting up the lighting. I think it was my birthday that actual day too. I think it was on my birthday. Yeah. Anyway,
Which is next week.
Monday. Yeah.
Maddie's first game of the season
Hey,
on
nice.
your birthday.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah, baby.
So anyway, we're there, and I'm talking to him, and I was like, "How long have you been in Chicago?" He goes, "I live in Utah." I was like, "Oh." And this is the moment I'm like, "Huh, Utah." He's like, "Yeah." We brought it in, and he told me about his wife and his kids, and I was like, "Why did they bring somebody in for Utah to shoot this Illinois lottery commercial?"
When there's 1,000 directors
Yeah.
in the city.
Yeah, I was like, "Well, what is this?" And I come to find out that this was, I forget exactly what happened, but there was some controversy or something going on. They made a bad decision the year before or something with marketing where they were throwing a lot of money at this particular shoot to really
They had to get it right.
they had to get it right. They had to get somebody good. And it's, I didn't know this at the time, but it is not unusual to get some big, like some of your favorite directors that have done your biggest movies do commercials. It's a quick payday. It really helps. Like, after this, I read for a McDonald's commercial that was being directed by Kevin Smith. That's his name, right? Yeah. Jay and Silent Bob.
Jay and Silent Bob.
Kevin Smith. Clerks. Yeah, Kevin Smith.
This is way back when I was in high school kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huge.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon were in some of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had that little chat. It was really nice. But I was like, why did they fly him in from Utah? So he goes to do whatever. And they've got that clicker, and that has the director's name on it, as well as a couple other names. But so I looked at that clicker down there. It's like Jared Hess. So I grab out my phone. I just look up Jared Hess. And I look it up. And it's the writer and director of Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. And
he did Nacho too?
yeah, he did Nacho Libre. He did Masterminds. Some of my favorite movies in the world. I never seen what
And
this
you
guy
had no
looked
idea.
like. I had no idea. I had no clue. And I think that was a blessing in disguise.
I bet.
Yeah. And I called my agent. I was like, I'm doing this with Jared Hess. He goes, yeah. I was like, you didn't tell me that. He goes, yeah.
Like on purpose. I
On
didn't tell you
purpose.
that.
I did not, I was so comfortable that whole day. And if I knew I was working with Jared Hess, I might not have been so comfortable.
Or you might have
Right.
just been trying to show
try-
off a little bit or
Exactly right.
amp it up, dial it up to 11.
Right.
So what changed when you realized who he was?
Nothing. We had like a couple hours left. What immediately went through my mind was, what have I said? What have I said? Because I was so comfortable and having fun, and we wrap, and then I see a lot of the crew, a lot of people who've just been working, coming up to get his autograph now, right? Like we've all just worked. You shouldn't be doing that, but a few of them coming up, and then I just went up, at the end. I was like, that was such a blast. Thank you, thank you so much. He's like, oh, this was awesome. This was awesome, Timmy. Like, great. I was like, thanks. Do you mind if we get a picture together? He goes, absolutely. And so, I flipped my phone around and I was like, hey, got that picture. But it was just so cool. And it's one of those things that you never know. Like, we worked so well together. That doesn't always happen. Something could come across where he's like, what about that guy I worked with wherever. You know, it's all about saying yes and doing things to the best of your ability to where ultimately it could be 10 years down the line.
Sure.
I pop into his head that's good for his next role or film or small part. And almost always, like all the films that I've done,
As a commercial real estate broker, your success depends on the right strategies and guidance. The Massimo Group, the world's top coaching organization for brokers, can help you scale your business and increase your income. And as a former client, I've personally experienced how their coaching can transform not only your career, but also your life. Don't wait to grow. Head to www.massimo-group.com today and see how their proven systems can work for you. This episode is also brought to you by Site to Do Business, the ultimate commercial real estate data analysis and mapping tool. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, Site to Do Business provides the data and insights you need to make informed decisions and close deals faster. Frankly, it's the tool that I use the most in my business. Access comprehensive market analysis, demographic data, and powerful mapping tools like ArcGIS, Placer AI, and flood maps all in one place. Identify the best locations for your clients, analyze market trends, and present your findings with confidence. Don't miss out on this game-changing platform. Visit stdb.com today and see how it can optimize your business. And now back to the show.
there's just a thread that goes through all of them, right? Like I was at Bye Bye Liver doing things at Public House. And because of that, somebody that was at that theater knew the person who wrote this movie. And he went online and he saw my Burgess Griffer series. Almost everyone, if they were to see Burgess, immediately you think, this guy making fun, right? And then the more you watch it, you're like, oh, this guy's got a lot of heart, right? This character's got a lot of heart. This is cool. And then you really get it. Just like how I love to surprise people, make them think one thing and all of a sudden, and that's what he experienced and went through there. And he called me up and then I went in, didn't have to audition for that. He was like, you're my guy if you want it, want this. And I did that. And that's where I met the ones who ended up shooting at the cabin.
Okay.
I was in both of their short films, which was their thesis film for their master's degree, which got awards for both of those, Rear View and that horror movie where where you could hear the baby through the baby monitor. Mm-hmm. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And then Rear View, which was another one where I was a widower and I had to connect with my 7-year-old daughter and kind of explain what was going on. Mm-hmm. Right. And then we did that one at the cabin, and it's just like there's a through line that no matter what you're doing and no matter how small or silly something happens, it was because I made these videos with Burgess Griffer right before moving to Chicago. That through line has followed me all the way to the last project I did.
Well, it's interesting when you talk about that because, as you listen to like Smartless and you hear these actors that you end up realizing are friends, but as they interview these other celebrities and actors, the thread that I've noticed through that is they were often friends first. And it was the relationships and the things that they did together that kind of jump-started their careers and has carried through their careers.
Yes, so true. And I think it's like that with a lot, but I think a lot of industries, but this one specifically, it's like who you know and the connections that you make is huge.
Well, man, when it comes to commercial real estate, well, we've experienced it here, and I've heard a lot of people tell some version of this story. In the second year of my career, I'm on desk duty, which means, if you're in a big office, you're manning the phones. So when people just call in randomly and they get a phone call and they do one deal with that person, develop a relationship, and over the next 20 years, they do 25 deals with them. And it's like a huge part of what grew their careers and their wealth and all that. And it was like one triggering event. Mm-hmm. And they did good work and built a relationship. That's and it just continued to produce and produce and produce.
It's like Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, those talents that continue to work together.
So you had Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, Sweeney Todd.
Okay, didn't see that one.
Sleepy Hollow. Anyway, several. Yeah, I won't do that.
So here's some other questions that I have. Talking about what a callback is. That makes sense. You have an audition, you get a callback. What is it a check date or what's that?
Check Avail.
Check Avail.
Yeah, Check Avail.
Check Avail is.
Check Avail, or almost always it means it's between one or two people.
Well, what does Check Avail mean in the first place? Like
so the dates it's going to shoot. The dates that you got to mark off. So they're like double checking, hey, you're in the running for this. Hold those dates. Okay. So another word for that is you're on hold.
Gotcha.
Right? You've not been given an offer, but they don't want you taking anything else.
What about SAG-AFTRA,
Oh yeah,
which is the union,
Screen Actors Guild.
Screen Actors Guild?
Uh-huh.
What does it mean to have your SAG-AFTRA card?
Sure.
How do you get it?
Yeah.
Because in some ways it seems like a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, it can. But like, yeah, let me explain it to you.
Yep.
In the way I understand it. And I'm not the most versed in this, but it's just so crazy because there's a lot of things. I think a lot of actors, people going into the industry really focus on trying to get or wanting to have happen. For me, I was just in love with the craft. So I take anything and do as much as I could to learn, study, and get as much experience as possible in the things I wanted to go into. So Screen Actors Guild, anybody that you see in movies and TV, like the big name actors, all that, they all have their SAG card. And then AFTRA is like radio, a lot of voice broadcast, and they combined them, I think, in the 90s. Or one was SAG, one was AFTRA, and then they combined it.
I got you.
So most of these big commercials or movies, or Chicago Fire, or Chicago Med, are SAG-AFTRA projects. So you have to pay the minimum amount.
So the show has to pay the actors a minimum amount.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anybody that in SAG is essentially protecting you. SAG protects you from being exploited, which it's so easy to do for actors. Everybody wants to be an actor. Everybody will work for free, especially when you're getting in and all this. SAG protects you from that. So it protects you from sexual harassment. There are just these standards that have to be met under a SAG-AFTRA contract. So most of the commercials I was doing were all SAG-AFTRA projects. And so I'm a non-union actor, and non-union actors can work in union projects, SAG-AFTRA projects. And then I earn, just to simplify it down, I earn a certain number of points, SAG-AFTRA points. When you get a certain number of SAG-AFTRA points, you become SAG eligible, which means I could join the union, pay my dues, get my SAG-AFTRA card, and I think it was around like $3,000 or something. And you get that's your initiation, your card. And then I think twice a year, maybe once a quarter, you are paying a couple $100 to keep it up to date. Once you get your SAG-AFTRA card and you're in the union, you cannot do non-union projects. I can still do stage. I'm not in any union when it comes to stage, but on camera, I can't do anything unless it's a SAG project. So immediately you're like, oh, there's all these other projects I could be doing, this independent film. Like there's an independent film that Tara and I were both asked to do. We really liked the script. We were super excited about it, but it was not SAG-AFTRA. So what I'm able to do, if you understand the different contracts that they have, from ultra low budget projects to student films to big projects, a lot of those low budget ones, the production doesn't have to spend more money, just do a little bit more paperwork to get it under a SAG-AFTRA contract, right? And there's like these loopholes of like, you have to offer your actor this much, but they can defer that and you all can negotiate to go under. But it's still protecting you and it has that precedent to whatever. So as a SAG-AFTRA actor, if there's a project I really wanted to do, I can connect them with one of the SAG-AFTRA representatives that I know at the Chicago office, and we can get them under a contract so that I can do this. So it's called flipping a project. And so I've done this several times, especially with friends that wanted me in their films that I really liked their script, like Sweet Meats, that one up there, right? Mm-hmm. He flipped that to SAG so he could have me in the film. And so I kind of make that connection and show them what's possible and how it's really just a little bit of extra paperwork.
Okay,
and,
so like these indie films that you see where you actually have big name actors who will do an indie film, for, like I'm thinking about Sling Blade.
Yeah.
That's
SAG-AFTRA
like I
project.
loved Sling Blade. But it was clearly a low-budget indie film. Billy Bob Thornton was in it. I think Dwight Yoakam was in it. Such a great movie. But I was just always thinking, well, it was a low-budget indie film, so it wasn't a SAG project. But
there are low-budget, ultra-low-budget contracts, because not everybody is a big-name studio or whatever. And so that gives them more flexibility and more money. So, you know, you work on a number of union projects. A lot of them were like a lot of the student films I did, and the ones I did with these guys at the cabin and stuff. They've worked. They're really seasoned filmmakers, and everything they do is under a SAG-AFTRA contract. You know, it's just immediate for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are trying to make something that know what they're doing, and so it's been really fun to be on that side because I'm able to help educate, like my friend Ricky Glore, who I've done a couple projects with him now. I was able to educate him how simple this is and how it opens up your pool for better talent, right? And then there are some people who do a lot of extra work and they earn SAG points through that, and then they end up getting in. And it's probably not a good decision for them because when you're an extra, you're essentially a human prop. You know, it's a great way to understand and get experience on set, but you're not really acting, you know, or working that muscle. So a lot of people can shoot their stuff in the foot trying to get that SAG-AFTRA card,
And then they're not
they
an
finally
option.
get it, but then they can't get that experience of actually putting in acting chops.
Yep.
And now they're not in the running for any of those. So it can be a catch-22. But the idea is you get a project. So when I became SAG eligible, my agent was like, I was like, I should join now. He's like, no, because you got one more project you can do one more SAG project you do where you have to join. So let's not jump in and do this right away. Because ideally you get a project that's going to more than pay for your SAG dues and then get in there and do that. So you get a certain number of points, you become eligible, you got the option to join. Any points over that, you have to join, right? So it's kind of a good process up and through. But
Well, you mentioned earlier how I think Tara was doing a self-tape today.
yeah, she
Right.
had a self-tape today.
So explain
for NFL.
like the National Football League.
Yeah. NFL and I forget what it was, but another big name, a Comcast or something like that. But yeah. That's
So
what she
how
did for
has auditioning changed? Because I know COVID changed everything
Yeah,
with
COVID's
auditioning.
changed everything. Yeah. So the self-tapes were always a thing. And you could do, you know, self-tapes, especially if you know, say there's a project in LA. Oh, here's what's so funny. Because I experienced self-tapes a lot from an agent in LA. I told you, I always thought an agent would see me somewhere and offer. And after I went through the process of really doing it, documenting it, I got my agent. A month later, that happened, where I was doing Timmy Heidi Picture Show at the Chicago Sketch Comedy Festival. John Griffiths from APA, which is one of the biggest, like anybody in the industry knows APA is like one of the biggest. This is who like McCarthy, Melissa McCarthy, A.D. Bryant, Schumer, Amy Schumer. A lot of these big names are represented by APA. And he was there and he was like, hey, that was really good. Do you have any representation? Blah, blah, blah. Here's my card. Without ever signing with him, from him, what I got was like a few weeks later, he sent me an audition for The Daily Show. Right? And I was like, oh, nice. Like all of a sudden I hit another level of auditioning for things. 50 Cent had a sketch comedy show that was coming out around the time. Not everything sees the light of day, but
Sure.
a lot of them have big names and, you know, here's a pilot for this. And so Daily Show was like, I was like, oh man, this is amazing. So I started doing self-tapes for John Griffith, I think was his name, at APA. And so all of a sudden I'm represented out of Chicago, and now I've got this agent that's sending me things. That's not, I think if I were to get one, you know, he'd get his cut and maybe we end up signing, but I'm not in LA. But I'm able to do these things. We got a wide range, and I do self-tapes. COVID happens, and everything becomes self-tapes because you can't go into the office. So when projects, you know, all projects shut down for a little while. And so at this time, a lot of casting directors aren't doing anything. So they're on their social media saying, hey, we're going to do this self-tape competition or contest or send us your best whatever. And so I jumped on that and I was like, great. And I built these relationships with these casting directors myself without that middleman, without that agent. I was chatting with them in DMs. You know, they're reaching out to me.
And you were able to do that because they essentially
were.
They made themselves available online.
Yes, because they weren't. they weren't doing anything right
Yeah.
now. They weren't working. So they wanted to see what other talent was out there and get to know and give back and help, which I thought was amazing. So I got to know several in New York. In the other great thing about SAG-AFTRA too is they've got these free workshops where, you know, after when I do one of these workshops, I think 60 to 90 days before I can do another one, right? But it's like these one-on-one or a group of 20 actors and a casting director. So I've got to know and meet like the casting director for 30 Rock, right, in New York, and several other shows as well. But 30 Rock, you know, is one that a lot of people know. So now I got this relationship with this person because of SAG-AFTRA that was completely free, minus the dues that you pay. But it's like all these resources open up in SAG-AFTRA. A lot of actors don't even know that. They don't even know you can do this stuff through the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and these other things. This was one of the first experiences where I went to one of those workshops and I got check Avail right away without auditioning for anything for a recurring role on a Netflix. It's out now. It's called Teenage Bounty Hunters. And the role I read for was these main characters, their teacher, which they ended up going with female, even though it was written as a man or for a man. This happens all the time. And that's why casting directors are so good. But that was my first experience, and my agent was just thrilled because they contacted him being on Check Avail without ever seeing a tape because of the work that I did with her and the conversation I had with her through SAG-AFTRA. What was the question?
Well, just how auditions have changed.
Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, COVID hits, they do this, and then when things start to open back up and projects are happening, you can't go into the office still. So everything became self-tapes. And then when the restrictions started lifting up, casting directors just, I know there's some that prefer to be in the room. A lot of actors would prefer to be in the room, but it's just way more efficient. You can see way more people if the first audition is self-tapes. So everything became self-tapes. And then if you get a callback, often that's in the room. And then you'll go and do that. So I got to pee really bad.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put a pause on this. So COVID happens and everything shut down for a little while, and then it went into self-taping and self-tapes. At the same time during COVID, TikTok was about to explode, and I decided to dedicate my TikTok to just helping actors, kind of teaching them and showing them what I have done. And because of that shift, I was like, I'll post one thing every day for 30 days that this is the main focus. Is like, here's 3 tips. If you want to become an actor, here's this, here's this, here's how you get an agent, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of doing all that. And that kind of exploded.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, that exploded. And from that, I've got files of one-on-one coaching sessions of like hundreds where I would do like free 30 minutes with people that were interested. And then several of them became paying clients.
Well, I remember we were at the cabin.
Yeah.
Dad, you, me,
Chainsaw
Jay,
Weekend.
and Beamer. It was Chainsaw Weekend around the first of the year, a couple years ago. We're all there, we're spending the day. And you have coaching sessions.
That's right.
And I think it was just taking off. So like you'd check your email and you would see, I just got paid 3 times.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. There was like a...
Right.
Like, this is so cool.
Yeah, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
And it was kind of crazy because it's like, all the job, I had so many jobs all the time. When you're an actor, you're getting into this business, you have to be able to supplement an income some way, shape, or form. So like Segway tour guide. The best and last job I had in Chicago was a karaoke host.
Yeah.
Right? And that was like right downtown in Gold Coast. These drunk white people wanted to get at the top of the line, and they would just give me so much cash money. And I was really good at getting it from them as well. But I would walk away with way more money in cash than I've ever made. Segway tour guide was another tip job where I was getting really good at getting people to pay tips. Those are like 2 of my favorite jobs. You always got these little odd jobs and things that allow you the freedom to take a job, to audition when they come up. It won't interfere with any of that. So it's kind of a necessity to have these types of jobs. I was never a server or waiter, which that's where most actors. It's a stereotype, but it's true. But karaoke host. That was just so great.
Well,
Yeah.
I went a couple times.
Yeah.
Of course, and I'd bring, like one time we had a CCIM conference, I think it was instructor training or something like that in Chicago. And I brought, Richard Juge and his wife and John Dinkins and his wife, Allie. And it was so funny to watch you do it. You do it because, like, it wasn't like you were just taking orders and playing the songs. Like, sometimes you would perform. Like, it was your job to keep the energy in the room really, really high.
Yeah.
And so...
And I wanted anybody that went up there to feel like a star.
Right. And so, like, I remember maybe once or twice, 2 different times, I think, I sang.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
And there's not really any amount of alcohol that can get me comfortable. But I'm up there trying to not make a complete fool of myself. And I look in the back, and there's my little brother Timmy in the back. He's like,
yeah, come on.
I mean, just making me feel like $1,000,000 up there, even though I know I'm not any good.
Yeah.
And it was just, and then when somebody would bomb, you'd jump in there next.
Yeah, there are a lot of times I was ready to jump up there.
Reclaim the energy of the room and get everybody jacked up again. And
that was so fun because I was in the back of the room and I'd stand up on my stool, so it was really high, and I had a microphone back there. So there's somebody that picked a song, they didn't realize there were so many lyrics at this part or whatever. I would take over and do it with them.
Yeah.
Which gave them
confidence.
More, confidence and yeah, and that's what was so fun because
that was a lot of fun to watch you do it.
Yeah,
and there was just a ton of energy in the room. It was fun for everybody.
Yep.
I remember they were like, "Yeah, karaoke bar." I'm like, come on, we'll have a good time. And I just remember, I talked my group into going. They all had a blast. Yeah, and that was because you were so good at what you did. Like, you made me look good that night. It was just a lot of fun.
It's so fun. Well, thanks for saying that. It was such a blast. And it was my last day at that before COVID was St. Patty's Day celebration. It was crazy. And then COVID hit. And I'm like, I was making at least, $1,000 to $1,500 a weekend in cash just from tips on that job, and that was like I said, that was like the most amount of money I was making on any of the jobs I was doing besides the acting jobs. That's a big payday for a period of time. And then just like brokers can relate to this, like, when's the next paycheck coming? You have no clue. And kind of, for an actor, it's a little bit out of your control when you're only relying on your agents, and not proactively doing things. But even then, where's the money at? All of a sudden, there's that money. It's gone because of COVID. I can't do that job anymore. So, with what happened with TikTok and coaching, that really helped supplement the income at the time and get that going, which was really, really great and fun. I think I got a bit of burnout from doing that. And I don't know, there's just so many people that wanted to do it. I am such an encouraging person. It was hard for me to take money it was hard for me to take money from somebody to coach and be like, they probably shouldn't be doing this, right? And then I was like, who am I to say whether they should or not? Maybe they haven't come out of their shell. Maybe it shouldn't have, but it just felt like shouldn't be taking money from these people. I had a hard time seeing the value I was giving them, though I wasn't. But it just got to a point where I was like, and things began to open back up eventually. And then I, got back to doing karaoke and was able to perform on stages again. So all that time I had, I don't have that time anymore because now, I'm performing on stages, getting ready for my next solo show and all this stuff. Long story short, as far as like where we are now, things began to open back up. Things began to go back to normal. But now here I am. I've got 2 kids. All of a sudden, we've got 2 kids. And we're in Chicago. You call me up. We start doing this podcast together. Mm-hmm. So we do this podcast, which, to answer Tim's question, as an independent contractor who produces this is part of my income right now. This is part of my income, and hopefully this begins to make more money as it grows, and we can both get the benefits of that, and whatever structure happens from that, it's great. But right now, this is part of the income I have at the moment. But SAG-AFTRA, if you remember, SAG-AFTRA went on strike. Mm-hmm. It was last year.
I think so.
Yeah, last year. It went on strike for a while. And our agents are like, hey, use this time to go take a trip, go somewhere. Nothing's going to be happening for a while. And at the same time, we got news that there's a direct flight from Owensboro to Chicago now. Twice a day, we could get up there in a matter of hours. And Tara threw out like, hey, we could, what do you think about moving back down there and saving money and kind of planning what we want to do with our life later? It gives us a little bit more availability to do that. We could still audition.
Got people here.
We got people. I was still in that community where, you've got all these new people coming in every year, right? And a lot of them are looking up to those who have been here for several years and stuff. But all those people that you looked up to or working with have gone to LA or New York or somewhere else or moving on. And it felt like the crowd that I had been in for several years, all of a sudden they're a lot younger than I am and nobody's got kids, and it's like, where's all my best friends live here. My family, a lot, you and mom, dad and Cody live here. So it was like, never thought I would move back here, but because of what we were doing with the podcast and all that, I was like, we're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So we did that up until a few months ago. I was still auditioning and doing that and kind of thinking, when we first moved here last Christmas, we did the community theater. Where, I did a lot here. That was so fun to get back and do that.
Great.
You
were so good.
Yeah, that was
you
so
and
fun.
Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so fun to do something with her, even though we didn't really have any scenes together. But yeah, that was such a fun character to play. But anyway, and I made the choice several months ago to drop the agent. And Tara is still with them, but my goals and things have shifted a little bit. And I mean, the other thing too, I always wanted to audition for SNL, and I got to do that. It was really exciting, really fun, just the opportunity to do that and stuff. There's a lot of culture shift that was happening between the years of 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, like all throughout, there's so many things that happened that kind of changed my views, my feelings, my thoughts. The more I learned about the industry, the more I really just wanted control over what I was doing. And this allows me to do that. But, right now I'm going all in on this with you, and then created a sport that
let's talk
I love.
about, like what are you working on now? Like clearly
Yes.
the podcast, this is what our listeners are used to seeing from us.
Sure.
But of course,
we got this,
you do all the work here.
Yeah.
Like you produce the show, any of our guests that have come on interact with Alice. She does all our scheduling. We call her our producer, but you're the one that's doing all the work, the editing,
all the production,
all the production stuff, distributing the content, all that. But it's not the only thing you do. So like, what else are you working on?
So the other thing I'm doing, and
like you invented something.
Yeah, I invented something, which is a game called Tizbee.
Yes.
This is a game called Tizbee, and we're almost protected.
So much fun.
Yeah. So we've got some things filed, but it's a game that you play on a tennis court with a frisbee.
Patent pending.
Yep. No patents are filed right now, but copyright and trademark. And yeah, we'll go down a patent road, I think. There's still some things we're tweaking on the product. But anyway, it's essentially tennis. It's frisbee on a tennis court. And
so much fun.
Yeah, and the only thing that's different about it is we've created this foot-long net that goes across, that creates this little 9-inch gap between the tennis net and the Tizbee frizz net that allows for when you're, if you get through that zlit, as we call it, you get through that zlit, you've got a potential extra point. If you win the volley point, you get those extra points that you get. But, if you were to return it through the zlit, it squishes my potential extra point or a pep. So if you go through it, squishes that pep.
Squishes the pep.
Yeah, squishes
going
the pep.
through the zlit.
That's right. Squishes the pep by, returning through the zlit. You really, you don't even have to go through the zlit, but that gives you those peps.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get the volley point, then those peps become extra points. If the other person gets the point and you've got some peps in there, those become points, and those are worth nothing. So it's this game that I created with my buddy Andrew, who I did Bye Bye Liver with. Done a lot of things with him. He's amazing, and we would play it in Chicago like for the past 5 or 6 years.
So the first time I played it with you was in Chicago.
Yeah, it was in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that it's been something, but we just played it for fun. We just loved playing it, and as far as exercise and things, like I just loved. I had so much fun. I'm not a big sports guy, traditionally, but this was it was just so much fun. And then when I moved here, introduced it to Leland. Leland and I have really been working on it. He kind of created this like idea, laid out this business plan, kind of just laid out what we could do with it, which gave me Andrew, my other friend who I did in Chicago, he'd always say things. He's an idea man. He's got all these ideas all the time. It's incredible. But as far as like getting down and getting into the details, the nitty gritty of how to do that and stuff, I had no interest in running that or getting that or whatever. But Leland just created this foundation on how to do it. So a lot of my time right now is dedicated to getting this up and off the ground, which now we've got the second prototype of our FrizzNet, and we've got the copyright and trademark have been filed just this last week, which means I can begin to talk about it. And we've got like a whole content strategy that we want to unroll and put out there to let the world know that it exists. And
Who needs pickleball?
Who needs pickleball?
When you've got Tizbee.
That's right. Who needs pickleball or tennis? Oh my goodness. This is the sport to piss off pickleballers, and it's a whole culture. But we'll see what it turns into and does. But I'm really excited about that, and excited to play with you with the new net.
Yeah.
And to answer Tim's question about where does Timmy make his money? I went through the past month or two, and the money I got was from producing this podcast. I got my Gillette commercial that I did 2 years ago, just got re-upped for another year.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was about $6,000 that came just because surprise. I got a $55 check from NBC for Chicago Fire. 55 baby.
Rerun ran.
They're reruns. Yeah. Residuals, where there's a period of time, because everybody's got this question too. It's like, on this TV show, you get residuals, right? So money comes in, the more it's played and where it's played and all that. And during this residual period, you get a check that's kind of more hefty, depending on the role that you play. Because mine was a co-star, wasn't that big. The most amount I'll get in the cycle is maybe a few hundred, right? And then you get another check that's a little bit lower, another that's a little bit lower, till that cycle is complete, and then it starts over again. So as long as that show is being played anywhere, I will be getting a small amount of money for that. That's why, like commercials, that's where most of the money is when it comes to actors, or at least where most of the big money is accessible to actors that aren't household names or whatever, right? Because you got these campaigns, and they because of SAG-AFTRA, they pay you a lot, and to be the face of this commercial, I got to say no to competitors and other things. So they've got to compensate you well for it. And if that commercial goes well, or if it plays well, they've got the option to, after that cycle is over, if they want to use it again, they contact my agent, and my agent renegotiates, and oftentimes I'll get paid even more than I was initially to go for another year or another cycle or however. So that's always fun. It's not something I can bank on all the time, but I get surprised sometimes where something ran, didn't run for a couple of years, they're going to use it again. Then I get a call from my agent or my ex-agent, and they're like, hey, we did this, I got you this, I'm sending you a thing, sign it, and then check comes in the mail. So that was a great surprise that came from that. And then another thing that I do is user-generated content through my social media following, or doing stuff on social media. A lot of brands will use these people who create content online on social media. They will use them to create user-generated content. So you're not using big studios and big shots or whatever. The brand just wants something that will be incognito, right? As you're scrolling, you're not immediately like, oh, that's an ad. It's that kind of, so user generated. So there's many agencies that I have had relationships with through what I've done on social media that will reach out to me and say, hey, these people want a campaign. If you can make 3 30-second videos. So the first one I did was for this men's particle for men. So they've got like face cream and spray and stuff. And I made 3 videos for them for like $450. 3 30-second videos for $450. And it did what I made for them did so well that their client, Particle for Men, reached out to me personally rather than going through this little agency, which is different than the agencies we talked about before. And then I'm able to negotiate more. And then when that first started happening, I was like, I gotta be careful because I'm SAG-AFTRA, right? So if I'm not playing myself or doing myself anything on camera where I'm playing a character, I just can't do unless it's SAG-AFTRA. A lot of these I'm just playing myself and writing a little script as me or whatever. But so I've got those that come in every once in a while. I can quickly hit off and get a few hundred or 1,000 or something like that. Or another stream of revenue right now is video, like helping commercial real estate community, people in that community. So Brad Arns, your partner in crime with the fund, and you as well. Y'all hired me and Leland to produce some videos for your all's website. And from there, he had this idea of doing some videos. So I've helped him do that as well. So consulting / editing and things of that nature. That is where my source of income comes at the moment.
Well, even to the point now where we're actually talking about creating an actual media company.
Yeah.
That could, so stay tuned. There could be a new co in the works here where we could serve the commercial real estate industry or any other industry in just creating compelling media that helps brands do what they're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. You know? And to have somebody else on the team to do that opens up my bandwidth to do more. Several people asked me at Massimo Con, like, do you consult or, you know, I want to make a podcast or I've got this idea for a podcast. What do you think? All this. And it's like, you know, you could reach out if you were interested in doing any of that. You know, another one of my jobs in Chicago was social media content creator and manager for a college. And I created their Snapchat. That hit our exact target audience. Sure. And it just exploded. I wasn't even the social media creator at the time. I just used it for, you know, as part of the outreach team, outreach manager, which we'd go to high schools and pitch and talk to these kids. But I created this thing. It just exploded for that. And then I ended up, I remember calling you because I was like, I'm about to go and talk to them. They want to, you know, talk to me about being the social media guy and the manager and talking about negotiating the salary, whatever. And then afterwards, when I left the meeting, I was like, I can't believe what I just got. You know, I asked for this and they gave it to me.
Yeah, that was fun for me too.
Yeah, that was so fun. You know, I just say that because I just have so much experience in creating content in different avenues and areas. And being in this world with you doing this, there's like a big gap that that's hard to jump when you're in commercial real estate as far as like what to do. And so, you know, you send me emails from time to time of people like, hey, I want to do this or that. So anybody that's interested in like coming up with what to do with content or you got a podcast idea or any of that, I'm always open to talk. And if I can do anything to help and do that, I will. And if not, I can point you in a good direction. But
yeah, well, you're so right about the gap because for years I wanted to do something like this and I just didn't know how to bridge that gap. Like you've been the bridge for me. And like without you, none of this would even exist. And if I had a podcast, it wouldn't be very good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So like it was just, you know, if we can create something, an actual company that can become that bridge for more people within commercial real estate or just in business in general.
Right.
I think there could be an opportunity there.
I think so too. Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things that's in the works potentially.
That's right. And, you know, as far as acting goes, you know, it's not uncommon to see actors go through seasons in their life where they step back and live life rather than just pursuing acting as well, which actually makes you a better actor because of the life and the experience that you're actually living. Sure. You've got more to pull from. And so it really was a huge weight off my shoulders when I knew I wasn't just going to get last minute auditions all the time and I could focus on on, what I want to focus on, which I have control over.
Yeah.
And I've got so many relationships at this point right now where it's like, I got 2 films, one that is going through the festival circuit and doing really well right now, and then one that's coming out next year.
Won a bunch of awards.
Yeah, it's got best feature film at a couple festivals, and I made a joke because I was like, "Hey guys, where's all the best acting nominations?" He's like, "It's weird this year. There's not even a category for actors." I was like, "Oh, I got spoiled on both your all's individual films. Those best actor nominations, being the greatest actor in the world. It's good to know that I can look in the mirror again." My goal, my focus right now is to just be in a point where I've got more freedom. It's the thing that we always talk about when it comes to investing or commercial real estate. When they make the shift to being an entrepreneur and having more freedom and getting good at that. And, that I'm trying to create that in my life right now, to have more freedom so that the projects that I want to do, I can go out and make it happen rather than sitting and waiting to mime juggling in front of a room of people. Well, which ended up being the best experience I've had.
If our listeners want to see a goat on your back, are you miming juggling? Are you losing your breath going into a Best Western or this, where can they go to see some of this?
The show notes, baby.
The show notes. Yeah.
I've got my reels. I got to see, I'm not sure what channel I got a commercial reel, a dramatic reel, and a comedy reel, but I'm going to find this. So whenever this comes out, y'all can go to the show notes and you can see, and you could,
great.
I'll put them there. Yeah.
I want people to be able to watch and learn a little bit about Burgess Griffer. And I want people to be able to see you do the Bohemian Rhapsody sketch and so many things that I've enjoyed over the years. Is there anything else we haven't covered that?
Oh yeah. The other thing too is when I moved up here, I did this TikTok. It ended up getting 23 million views.
Oh yeah.
It was me talking about being newly divorced.
Which of course you're not. But.
I'm not, but I made enough on there. It's funny because if you were to go to my social media now, I don't post much, especially with what I used to so much documenting my life or my family. So if you were to go to my social media, you'll see some videos from this podcast. But if you were to look at there's 20 videos of me talking about being divorced, which is really kind of a framework and avenue for me to tell these dad jokes that I've either written or repurposing.
Yeah. Just super literal.
Yeah. Super a lot of people are saying, what's that one book? If you know what it is, put it in the comments. I know a lot of people. Amelia Bedelia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got that a lot. Emilio Bedelio. And so, with the way social media is right now, you start getting views like that, you can make a substantial amount of money. And so that's another source of income that I still get a few $100s a month. And I was going to continue that series, but again, you only have so much focus and time to put to these things, and your goals change and priorities change.
Sure.
And, but that was another exciting thing as we were moving here. That was just like, oh man, I could just do.
And those are so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But yeah, when I was talking to Tim, he's like, does Timmy help produce or coach to help others produce content? I do and I can. How do you get the skill set of production and editing? Goals as an actor, career goals. Oh yeah, so goals. And I think those are some of my goals as an actor, so for Tim specifically. Some of my goals right now have shifted to this being the #1 commercial real estate podcast in the world. And then getting Tizbee off the ground and to be able to create content around that, because it's like a movie that's involved. But I'm creating freedom now so that whatever goals I want creatively, as far as making movies, films, or content, I've got the freedom and ability to do, and to be recognized as an actor, or I think it's something all actors want. It's like, oh, it'd be great to win awards or things. I don't feel that way as much anymore. It'd be awesome for that, but I don't need it. I just want to be able to make things that I love, that I would want to watch, and do it with a great group of people. So those are some of my goals, to have the freedom to be able to to embark on a project that I'm helping lead, put together, or have written with some other people to make the things we want to make. And Tizbee is giving me that avenue. This gives me a piece of that as well with what we're creating. If you were to ask me 2 years ago, it'd be SNL. SNL was always the answer. I want to be on SNL. I want to do SNL. And that still would be great to be on SNL as a cast member or as a host. But, I think host would be more of it because I've just pulled myself out of that for a little bit. It's not my main goal anymore. This can be a quick answer too. As far as how did you get the skill set of production and editing? It started when I was like 15. I got a job at Sunlight Music Studios, which is a local music studio here in town that recording artists go and record at.
Including my wife.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
She recorded there.
That's right. And they also did a lot of local commercials. I remember. So I worked under Shane Devon, which still lives in town. I don't know if you know him or not. And he showed me how to use Final Cut Pro. So we were doing, I learned how to edit via like weddings. We're doing weddings and stuff. And then I did a local commercial for a lawyer. I don't know who this lawyer is.
Do you remember
And I'm not
the
talking
name?
about Brad Rhodes, because Brad Rhodes hired me to do some video for him. I don't know, but it was that experience that had the idea for Barron and Barron, that spoof of a lawyer commercial,
which you can watch right here.
Barron
That
and
one's
Barron.
one of my favorites.
That's one of my favorites too. It was just so fun. YouTube came out around that time where I was like, 18, 19, 20, and we started making all these videos. And then yeah, I mean, it's just an amalgamation. I'm a nerd for this stuff. I'm a nerd for all this stuff. And so it's just been an amalgamation of learning and doing with all this stuff over the last 20 years. So that's my answer to that one, where the skill of all that come from. And I think that's it as far as like specific things he was asking or curious about that I would be as well.
Well, I'm glad he asked because I really enjoyed unpacking all this and learning more about my little brother.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you from my perspective, I am having a blast having you and your family back in town. I love that you're here. I love that we get to do this together.
Yeah.
Of course, so much more than the fact that this podcast, certainly not perfect. We can always improve. But from the jump, because of you and your skill set, it's just been at an excellent level. Something I never could have accomplished without you. And so even beyond all that benefit, just doing this with you has been a complete blessing for me.
Yeah, vice versa.
And we've gotten to take some trips together now.
Yeah.
And like just we've always been brothers. We've always had a good relationship, but we're 10 years
never
apart.
that close.
Well,
though,
we just never had a reason to spend a lot of time together, and this has been that reason, and I've enjoyed every second of it.
Same. It's it's incredible. It really is incredible. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It really. Yeah. I love you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I
you're
love
welcome.
you too. Yeah.
Yeah. This is fun. I'm excited to see where it's going to go and what more we're going to do, and the different levels that we could take this, and man, it's going to be huge.
Huge.
Huge. What's this here? This is a new addition to.
Let's see if I can.
Oh, look at that!
Bring this over.
It's gonna
without
break.
dropping it.
Yeah.
This here
I love this kind of stuff.
is a globe.
We sell dirt.
Yeah.
Is what it says right
So
there.
look, Joe Varing, we met at Massimo Con.
Joe.
He's out of I think Vancouver, British Columbia. And we met him there, but his company is Varing Marketing Group, and his website is WeSellDirt.com.
Oh,
so
nice.
He sends me this, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And it comes in a box. I unpack the box, and in it there's a wrapped gift. Okay. The wrapping paper says "We Sell Dirt" all over it. It's got a card. I open up the card. It says "We Sell Dirt," and he's got a nice little handwritten "Nice to meet you at Massimo Con" kind of thing. And in it was a magazine that he produced. It's all about the industry and the market and his company, and everything about this was branded. And he gives me this super cool globe that literally rotates based on the energy from any light source.
Oh. Yeah, look at it.
And it's just really cool. And of course, for the love of dirt is what it says.
For the love of dirt.
And so I was so super impressed. Thanks
Ireland.
for the gift. Yeah, thanks for the gift because it's really cool. But just the branding is so next level for what Joe has accomplished. And my guess is he comes from a marketing background because nobody in commercial real estate markets
I can't picture
brands
Joe
as well as this. But yeah, that's sort of the we sell dirt.
That's really great. Like, it makes me want to bring him on the podcast to talk his branding and the idea behind this because it's really cool.
We may have to reach out to Joe.
Yeah, we may have to reach out to Joe.
But yeah, regardless of what happens next, Joe, thanks for the gift. Super cool.
This is amazing.
And certainly worthy of the shout out.
This is so cool because this also...
Yeah, that's a new addition I saw though.
This moves via light as well. His head bobbles because of the light source.
Really?
Yeah, right there. Huh. So, and this,
Bob Ross.
Yeah, Bob Ross. And this is a gift I got myself at Five Below. I went in there for the first time the other day and bought 2 T-shirts. Their T-shirts are great. I'm wearing one of them now. Well, Bo looks up to see some of the shout outs we do. He's going to he's going to Apple Music to see what reviews we got, because anybody that leaves a review on Apple Music, which if you do go to Apple Podcasts, if you go to Apple Podcasts, you click on our picture, it'll take you to our page. You just scroll past a few of the episodes, and that's where the reviews are, and that's where you can leave a review. We shout them out because it's not so easy to find if you go to do that. And we've got some new ones, and we want to shout out our reviews. We'll also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you leave some comments, comment like what are other questions you want to know about me, you want to know about Bo, you want us to cover in this podcast. What did you think about what we talked about today? Did you know this stuff? Did you know about this acting stuff in jargon? Did you find it interesting? Did you not? Let us know in the comments because we love to hear it. And what do we got? A review?
We have a review. This is from 744-8437.
744-8437.
I have no idea who this is, but it says, I've listened to other podcasts, well, tried to, about commercial real estate because as a residential real estate agent, I want to know as much as I can. Many of my residential clients are also investors, and the more knowledge I have about their entire situation, the better I can serve them on the residential side. It's hard to find commercial real estate podcasts that keep my attention, delivers the message in a way that can be easily understood, and that isn't put on just to boost the podcaster's ego. Bo and Timmy are so smart, so kind, and just stinking hilarious.
Wow.
Thank you. I would have never imagined myself listening to commercial real estate shows and even re-listening to many. Y'all deliver so much value, and I'm usually driving while listening, so I can't take notes. Because of this show alone, I'm strongly considering going through the CCIM course.
Wow.
I appreciate you both so much. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Oh my God.
And then the little heart.
Little Taylor Swift heart.
So I don't know who you are, but that was awesome. Thank you so much for...
amazing. That's amazing. So that means so much, that one right there. Because that's exactly what we're setting out to do. That commercial real estate that's entertaining, that you can enjoy and listen to over and over. Thank you so much. That's so good.
We really appreciate it.
That's so good. You got a review like that going around your head that you want us to read out? We'll shout you out. Yes. We'll shout your phone number out. That's a great idea. That's a great marketing thing too. If that is indeed a phone number without an area code. That's now getting me like, creative ways to get like a free ad, right? A free ad on a show. Leave a review and you know that it's a good idea. You want a free ad on the show, leave us a review. We read it. We'll shout it out. So on YouTube, subscribe, ding that little bell, share this with other people. We met somebody at the CCIM inaugural presidential event. What was that called?
It was the annual governance meeting.
Which
had the inaugural ball for our new president for 2025.
That's right. There was another broker there that said he had listened to a few, he really enjoyed it, but he shared it with some banker friends of his, and it sounded like they were bigger fans than he was. Like, share this with other people. In our last episode, you talked about all the people that have the same clients, everybody that touch the same clients. So if you know somebody like that, it doesn't have to be a commercial real estate broker or an investor. Send it to a CPA, a lawyer, or, whoever that you could think of. That means so much to us. We also have a free weekly newsletter every Thursday.
We do, and it is a mashup of a lot of the things that I like to read. Things like negotiation, culture, leadership. Always contains one of our recent podcast episodes, ways to get in touch with the company as well. But it's just some great content that you can read through quickly. Comes out on Thursdays. And if you want to subscribe, we'd love to have you join us there. It is subscribe.wgbarron.com.
I love it. It's a great newsletter, and I admire so much about Bo, and it's because of this stuff that he's into. So subscribe to that, and you'll get my admiration as well. Also, I want to give a shout out to SUPERPOWERS and Alice. We say goodbye to Alice every single time. She's your executive assistant.
Yes.
We had them on. You can watch that right here. It's a great episode about giving yourself more hours in the week to focus on your unique abilities. If you're interested in that at all, you can watch that, or you can go straight to SUPERPOWERS HQ. SUPERPOWERSHQ.com/commercially speaking. Let them know you came from us. They're big friends of the podcast. We love them very much. Want to help them out as much as possible. But superpowershq.com/commercially speaking. Find out more about executive assistants, and follow us on social media anywhere at commercially speaking, on X at ComSpeakPod. That's Com, C-O-M, Speak Pod. That's it. Love you, brother.
Love you, man.
We'll see you all next Monday.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
Alice.
Alice.